I'm a poor man who can't move because of my illness. I've been in bed or on a couch for a long time. I live in a small room near a canal in Venice. There's only one window in my room, and it's not very high above the water of the canal. I have an old lady taking care of me. She makes my bed and brings me food. I make drawings of flowers and fruit to earn some money. I send these drawings to my friend in London, and he sells them for me. It's not a lot of money, just about £30 a year, but I'm happy with it. Let me describe my room a bit more. The window in my room is about 5 feet above the water. The house I live in sticks out over the water, supported by strong poles under the canal. Because of this, I can't see much of the house across from me. I can only see about 10 feet of it from my window. But if I lean out of the window as much as I can see up and down the canal for a little way. The canal is not very wide, only about 15 feet. Even though I can't see the whole house in front of me, I can see its reflection in the water, but upside down. I find it interesting to watch the people who live there and sometimes come out on their balconies or look out of their windows, all upside down. When I first moved into this room 6 years ago, I noticed a young girl, maybe around 13 years old, as far as I could tell, who would stand on a balcony just above the part one could see. She had a table with some flowers and a cross on it. She worked there all day long, from morning till evening. I thought she earned money by sewing. She was a hard-working girl, and from what I could see from her upside-down reflection, she was tidy and pretty. She had an elderly mother who was sick. On warm days, her mother would sit with her on the balcony. It was touching to see the young girl cover her mother with shawls, bring her pillows, a stool for her feet, and take breaks from her work to kiss and hug her mother for a short while before getting back to work. As time passed, the young girl on the balcony grew older. She started as a girl of around 16 or 17 years old. I could only work for a short time during the brightest part of the day, so I had lots of time to watch her. I imagined a little love story about her, imagining she was beautiful, although I could only guess how she looked. I thought I saw her becoming interested in my reflection. She could see mine as I could see hers. One day, it seemed like she was looking right at me, so I bravely nodded at her. To my joy, her reflection nodded back. That's how our reflections got to know each other. I fell in love with her pretty quickly, but it took me a while to gather the courage to do more than nod to her every morning when the old lady moved me from bed to the sofa by the window, and again in the evening when the young girl left the balcony. One day, I nodded to her and tossed a flower into the canal. She nodded back several times, and I saw her show her mother what had happened. From then on, I threw a flower in the water every morning for good morning and another in the evening for good night. I realized I wasn't throwing them in vain when one day she tossed a flower too, and we both laughed and clapped our hands as our flowers joined together and floated away. So, we continued this little routine, throwing flowers in the morning and evening, clapping when they met, and pretending to be sad when they got separated, usually because they hit something in the water. She would point to the sky to say it was destiny causing our flowers troubles, and I tried to convey that destiny would be kinder next time, and maybe our flowers would be luckier tomorrow. It was all innocent and fun. One day, she showed me her crucifix and kissed it, so I took my little silver crucifix and kissed it to show her we shared the same religion. Then one day, the young girl didn't come to her balcony, and I didn't see her for several days. Even though I kept throwing my flowers, no flower joined mine. But after a while, she came back, dressed in black and often crying. That's when I knew her mother had passed away, and as far as I knew, she was all alone in the world. For many days, there were no flowers, and she didn't acknowledge me. She just kept working, wiping her eyes with her handkerchief from time to time. Across from her was her mother's chair, and I could see that now and then, she would put her work down and gaze at it, and tears would fill her eyes. But eventually, she nodded at me again, and our flower exchange resumed, just like before, with good days and bad days, as our flowers sailed away together. The saddest day for me was when a handsome young man who rode a gondola, I could see him in person, came up to the house and talked to the young girl on her balcony. They talked like old friends, and from what I could see, he held her hand throughout their conversation, which lasted about half an hour. Eventually, he rode away, leaving me feeling quite down. However, my spirits lifted when, after he disappeared, the young girl threw 2 flowers that grew on the same stem into the canal. At first, I didn't understand the meaning, but it soon dawned on me that she wanted to tell me that he was her brother, and there was no reason for me to be sad. So, I nodded to her happily, and she nodded back, and we both laughed, and everything continued as before. Then a difficult time came when I needed treatment that kept me in bed for many days. I worried that I wouldn't be able to see the young girl anymore, and worse, she might think I had left without letting her know the truth. I stayed awake at night, trying to figure out how to tell her, but all my plans seemed reasonable in the dark, but impractical in the morning. One day, the old lady who took care of me told me that a gondolier had asked if the English gentleman had left or passed away. I learned that the young girl had been worried about me and sent her brother to find out what happened. Her brother must have explained my prolonged absence from the window. From that day on, every morning, I found a flower on my window ledge, within easy reach from a boat. Finally, when I was able to move again after 3 weeks, I returned to my usual spot by the window. The young girl saw me and showed her joy by clapping her hands in an upside-down way. When the gondolier passed by my window, I beckoned to him, and he rode over. He told me with a lot of smiles that he was really happy to see me well again. I thanked him and his sister for their kind thoughts during my time in bed. Then, I learned from him that her name was Angela, and she was the kindest and purest girl in all of Venice. He said anyone would be lucky to have her as a sister, but he was even luckier because he was going to marry her, and their wedding was the next day. My heart felt like it was about to burst, and I could hear my blood rushing through my veins for a while. Finally, I managed to mumble some awkward congratulations. The gondolier left, singing happily, but not before asking if they could bring his bride to visit me the next day after their church wedding. He explained, "You see, Angela has known about you for a long time, ever since she was a child." She often talked to me about the kind Englishman who was a good Catholic and spent years and years lying on a sofa by a window. She wished she could speak to you and comfort you. One day, when you threw a flower into the canal, she asked if she could throw one too. I said yes because she wanted to show sympathy for someone who was suffering. So, I learned that it was pity, not romantic love, that made her care about my well-being. That was the end of it. The two flowers that I thought were on one stem were actually two flowers tied together, but I didn't realize that. They symbolized that she and the gondolier were engaged, and my happiness about it delighted her because she thought I was happy for her. The next day, the gondolier came with a group of other gondoliers, all dressed up for the occasion. Angela, blushing with happiness, sat on his gondola. They entered the house where I lived and came into my room. It was strange, after so many years of seeing things upside down, to see her with her head above her feet. She wished me well and a quick recovery, even though I knew I could never get better. With broken words and tears in my eyes, I gave her the little silver crucifix that had been with me for so many years. Angela accepted it with respect, admiration, kissed it, and then left with her happy husband. As I heard the gondoliers singing as they went away, their song fading in the distance as the evening shadows closed around me, I felt like they were singing the farewell to the only love that had ever touched my heart.